Hello everybody, we are back with another standard chess video. My name is National Master Dave Mohan, and I'll be playing a 15 plus 10 game on chess.com today. So let's see if we can get a game. We do against BDI, and we have black. So let's see what our opponent plays. Knight to f3. So against this, we're going to go for the Dutch defense. Okay, e4 right away. This is an interesting approach. I used to play a line similar to this with white where I would play 2d3 and then play e4, but he goes for e4 right away. Okay, knight to f6 is just the most natural move, so that's what I'm going to play. d3, okay. Now I can try to play normally with e5. E5 seems pretty natural to me, just taking control of the center. Knight c6 is also in the spirit of a lot of Dutch positions, so maybe I'll go for that. Let's see, knight c6, d takes e4, h6. And knight c6 looks like the right move, actually, because we're still retaining the opportunity to go e5. We still have that option. And we're getting ready to play g6 in some positions, just keeping our flexibility, basically. And if white takes back with the d-pawn on e4, we might have h6, kicking away the knight. Yeah, so knight takes e4 is what I'm expecting. Maybe even knight c3 from white, just putting more pressure on the pawn, trying to force black to recapture. In that case, I may take him up on his offer and just play e takes d3. We'll have to see. So, probably of the two recaptures on e4, knight takes e4 is better. Like I said, just not to fall into some sort of d takes e4, h6, and then I'm taking on e4. Although, if white plays that right, then he could be creating some mate threats on my king, which I have to be very careful of. So to play h6 or not to play h6? Okay, I think h6 is relatively solid, actually. I don't see any immediate problems with this h6 move. We are really playing with fire here, though, just opening these squares next to our king, because when we weaken the light squares like this, we are opening the possibility of us getting mated there. So we have to be very, very careful here. Really, if I were to describe the Dutch in 3 words, maybe that's the best way to describe it, playing with fire. That's honestly a pretty accurate description of the Dutch defense. You're really taking some risks. It's not for the faint of heart. So if knight to f3 here, just simply retreating the knight, I am actually not sure that I can take this pawn on e4. Because if knight to f3 and I take on e4, then bishop d3 happens, and suddenly he's threatening bishop to g6 mate. So I don't really want to allow that, and there's no fantastic way to defend against this, because let's say knight f3, knight takes e4, bishop d3, knight moves back to d6, bishop comes to g6 with check. We have knight to f7 blocking it, but that's just a very shaky position. We're almost losing there, which is not what we want. Let's see if white can come up with anything more concrete than knight back to f3. I think knight to h3 is definitely the inferior move. White might try to do this just to retain the option to go queen h5. So if knight h3, knight takes e4, then white does have queen h5 with mate. So either way, it's probably inadvisable to take this pawn on e4. But what I'm going to go for is a dynamic position with my pawn on e5 in the center and see how white can respond to that. Now, the light squares around my king are obviously extremely weak, so I may consider going queenside with the king. But it depends on how white chooses to play this. White might put the bishop on c4, in which case I'm forced to go queenside. So maybe the next plan is e5, followed by d6, and bishop out to g4. just trying to develop our pieces that way. Queen d7, castles queenside. That's one option. It's also possible to go e5, d6, queen e7, and bishop to e6, trying to trade the light square bishops if white puts his bishop out on c4. So we have a lot of options here. Either my opponent's thinking for a long time or I lost connection, but it looks like we have all four bars, so let's hope it is not that. I think maybe my opponent is trying to find a way to deliver mate here. That's a possibility, but in my mind, there's really no concrete way to do this in this position. Because let's say you allow me to take your knight, now my rook also guards the h5 square. So even if you somehow manage to distract my knight away from f6, if I take your knight, you're not mating me on h5 anymore because I can play rook takes h5. So f4, and this is the sort of thing that I was talking about where after this sort of move, my rook does protect the h5 square. So I think we should just keep up our approach of playing with fire and just take that knight. That looks like it's the best move. Just take the knight on g5. So let's say we play h takes g5, f takes g5. Can we play knight takes e4? If knight takes e4, there are two moves that come to mind: queen to d5 and bishop d3. If takes, knight takes e4, bishop to d3, I think we have pawn to d5, just basically cementing the knight there, and that actually looks very powerful, so I'm tempted to go for that option. And the white position looks a bit shaky, I have to say. So I'm going to go ahead and take this and basically just pose the question to white, what do you have here? It's possible he has mate. Let's hope that's not the case. So pawn to e5 played. Very, very sharp. White is really going for my throat here. How can we defend this? So the idea, I guess, is if knight to e4, white is playing bishop to d3, and still threatening some mating ideas. So maybe that's not the best way to go for us. Bishop to d3, we have d5, takes, knight takes. It's looking a little shaky, honestly. It's looking a little shaky. So, should we still go for it, though? I'm tempted. I'm tempted to still go for it. Knight e4. Knight e4, maybe there's also queen d5, picking up the knight. Is this possible? Maybe that's his idea. Knight e4, queen d5. After which, I have knight g3 there, though. I have knight g3 there. Actually, I have knight g3 in both positions, but actually after bishop d3, I have to play a d5. Okay, so knight to e4. Knight e4, bishop d3, we're going d5. That's the plan. And if he takes en passant, then we can play knight takes d6 and just hope we're defending there. It's a very sharp game. We're in for a very interesting one. Bishop d3 is the move I'm expecting, but queen d5, if it's working concretely, tactically, then it could be extremely powerful as well. So if white can find a concrete way to make this queen d5 work, it's going to be absolutely lethal. Queen d3 also looks strong, actually. Queen d3. This is a very interesting game. Lots of possibilities for both sides. But yeah, we basically, now our strategy is try to avoid getting mated, and if we can avoid getting mated, then we'll just be up a piece. So if there's some way for us to escape from this, not get mated, we will be winning. Bishop d3, d5. So bishop d3, I'll show it. Bishop d3, d5. E takes d6 en passant. Knight takes d6. Bishop to g6 check. Knight comes back to f7. And then does he have anything concrete to win? So one important detail is this knight on c6 actually handily defends our queen on d8. So we don't have to worry too much about any sorts of lines in which this file being open creates problems for us. Okay, queen d5 played. So this does trap our knight on e4, but I was mentioning that we have this tricky knight g3 here. So did my opponent miss knight to g3? That's our only way to escape. Did he miss knight g3? Okay, knight g3, there's actually queen to d3. Powerful idea. Wow, knight g3, there's queen to d3. And that's a fork. So if we go knight g3, our opponent plays queen to d3, and suddenly he's forking our knight on g3 and mate. Interesting. So do we have to settle for less then? Knight g3, queen d3, any way to escape? d6, possibly. Let him take the knight. Sharp stuff. Very sharp position. So the material count right now is we're just up a clean piece. So we can give back a full piece and still be okay. That's one thing that we have to acknowledge right out of the gate, that we can give up a full piece and be okay here. So knight g3, it's okay to give up this knight and just try to run to safety. So should we do this? Is there any better way to give up the knight? Maybe knight c5 is a better try to give up the knight. Knight c5, queen takes c5, and e6, developing the bishop. Although then it does become slightly tough to get castled queenside. We're not exactly doing that in the best way. So let's just take another moment to think. We have some time. Yeah, it's a tough one for sure. Yeah, knight g3, he has to see queen d3 or he's in trouble. So I'm deciding whether or not to just risk it and see if he sees this queen d3 option. Because if not, he's the one who's playing with fire there. Is there any way to make knight g3 work though? Knight g3, queen d3, d5, queen takes g3, bishop f5, queen takes g5, e6. Really not all that convincing. Yeah, don't know about that one. Maybe there's knight d4 there. It's a little bit sketchy. Knight d4 looks pretty powerful though. Okay, let's go for knight g3. Just basically test our opponent. If he sees queen to d3, then that's fine. But if he doesn't, then we get away cleanly. So queen d3, we go d5. Queen takes g3, bishop f5. And then next move is just like queen takes g5, we have knight to d4. That is our plan. Now the question is, can we get away with it? And it'll be a pawn sacrifice because right now, even though we're up a piece, we'll be giving back the piece and giving up a pawn in addition to that. So let's see what he does. He does go queen to d3. Now our plan is d5. Just plant the pawn in the center. Uh, Queen to g6, I don't believe that works. Um, didn't spend too much time calculating that because it just feels like king d7 is an escape. Yeah, queen g6, king d7, pawn to e6, king jumps up to d6, and it should be safe there. I don't see any way for white to immediately mate because we can run to c5, back to b6, and we should be safe. So I'm guessing queen takes g3 will be played. And after queen takes g3, our idea is bishop f5. The reason that we don't want to take on f4 after queen takes g3 is because the queen can swing around to g6 in that variation, and then that's problematic for us because we're basically getting the same position as queen g6 here, except we're not going to be up a piece. So we really want to avoid that one at all costs. White should probably just take the knight on g3, which I expect he will do, and then bishop f5. Yeah, queen takes g5, I think knight d4 is the idea. That's what we want to play. Looks pretty solid, or I shouldn't say solid because this position is anything but solid in the traditional sense of the word, but it looks concrete. That's the word I'll use. I think after queen takes g3, bishop to f5, white also has bishop b5 as an idea, just trying to pin the knight on c6 so that knight d4 is no longer possible, but we'll see what we can do about that. I'm thinking about queen g3, knight d4 right away. Is that possible? Queen takes g3, knight d4 right away, attacking c2. Although that's not as effective because there's bishop d3 there. So that's not as effective. We should go bishop f5 first. Okay. Also, it just came to me that after queen takes g3, we also have the possibility of g4. Okay, he does go for this. We have to go king d7, so we'll just do it. Maybe he sees something concrete that I missed. That's also entirely possible. Is he trying to go bishop to d3 here? So that is a big plan. Or does he want pawn to e6? Pawn to e6, in my mind, looks like the most concrete choice. Just saying, okay, if you get away with taking the piece, I'll lose. But if I get away with my attack, if I get into the dark squares, then you're completely lost. So White is basically making this statement that he's going all in, which is a respectable choice. Maybe b3 will be played here. That's definitely possible. And White's just going for the mate on the dark squares. Very possible, actually, b3. And after b3, I can take on e6, though, no? Bishop takes e6, run back to d7 with the king. I think I can do that. Interesting. So b3, bishop takes e6. Yeah, I have to play bishop takes e6, otherwise my position's just a huge mess. I could try knight b4, b3, knight b4, and try for c5. That's another possibility, but knight b4 doesn't threaten anything. That's my problem. I have to make some sort of threat. Otherwise, I'll really be losing the thread here. Bishop takes e6 seems like a solution. Okay, he takes on g3. I guess the idea is to eliminate the knight, which was earlier protecting the f5 square. So now if I take on e6 with my bishop, he might be trying to go f5. Right now my rook on h8 is hanging, so I have to address that. If I take his rook on h1, okay, he goes b3. I'm having a harder and harder time seeing White's mate, but it's definitely a huge threat in the position. B3 is a nasty move to deal with, just straight up nasty move. I might have to go knight d4. So b3, maybe try knight d4 with the idea of king running to c6. C3, maybe I can. Okay, f5 right away. Either this guy's a genius or he's really messing this up. It's one of those two. Either he's a genius or he's messing this up royally. So, what if I play knight e5? What's he going to do? What if I just play knight e5? Or what if I even play knight d4? I'm threatening to just take more material. Is that too greedy, though? Is knight d4 too greedy? Knight d4, bishop takes g5, knight c2. Just taking more material. Maybe I should do that. Just knight to d4. And the material is tempting, but also b6. Okay, knight d4. Let's say knight d4, knight a3, b6, c3. Okay, let's calculate fast. Knight d4, knight a3, b6, c3, bishop a6. That's strong. That looks strong. So let's go knight d4, see what he's got up his sleeve. And this pin is really important, the bishop being pinned to the king. So, what's he going to do? Is he going to take on g5 with something? That looks like the main plan here. Either take on g5 with the queen or the bishop. I suspect he'll take with the queen. That looks like the most logical approach. But then he's giving up c2. So, how's he going to proceed? Is he just going to sacrifice c2? And say, just like, I'm going to mate you. That's possible. That is definitely possible. Queen takes g5, I have to be very careful. Definitely very careful. Okay, queen takes g5. Knight takes c2. Okay, he goes knight a3. Now here's where I wanted to play b6. Can I play b6? This is the position. If I'm going to play b6, it has to be now. So I'm ready to meet c3 with bishop a6. Can I do that? So b6, what if just queen takes g5? Bishop a6, queen f4 check, king c6. Queen takes d4, rook takes f1, I'm fine there. Okay, b6 is tempting. I'm going to do it. We don't have infinite time. Idea, just bishop to a6. And if I can hold this, I'm just up a rook. So I need to be able to hold this position. Bishop to e3, my idea is bishop a6. I need to go bishop to a6. And if he does something else, I'm strongly considering rook takes f1 sacrifice. Okay, bishop takes g5. Now, can't I play bishop a6? Bishop a6, bishop f4 check, king c6, and I'm running. Can I do this? I'm running away. This looks like the worst version of queen takes g5. So I'm just going to go bishop a6. He goes c4. Okay, to be fair, I didn't really see that move. But that seems like a logical way to respond because, yeah, now he's covering some more stuff. So do I play c5? Do I play c5? And then he still can't take on d5. So, oh wait, do I have queen e8? I might just have queen e8. Oh man, wait, queen e8, bishop f4. queen e8, bishop f4, king c6, queen g5, queen h5. Ooh. If this works, that'll be huge. So queen e8, bishop f4 check, king c6. Queen g5, queen h5. Now I'm turning queen e2 mate. Queen e8, bishop f4 check. Do I go king c5 or king c6? King c5 allows b4 with some more counterplay. Don't really want to allow that, so maybe king c6. But now I'm always coming back to b7. So this looks like a strong approach. So queen e8. Bishop f4 check. Has to be played, I think. If he doesn't go bishop to f4 check, then he's allowing the queen trade. So bishop f4 check needs to be played. And now I'm thinking just king c6. And maybe I'm just getting away. King c6. And I'm running back to b7, right? Okay, king c6. What can he do? Queen to g4 or queen to g5 looks logical. But if he avoids the queen trade, I force it anyways. But the only difference there is after queen g5, if queen h5, I'm doing a double threat of queen takes g5 and queen to e2 mate. So he has to take. But if he does the queen trade on his terms like that, queen g5, queen h5, takes, now at least he's not pinned. So if he goes queen to g5 here and lets me go queen h5, he takes my queen on h5, I take his queen with my rook, and now his bishop isn't pinned to his king anymore. I'll show that afterwards. So my king is running back to b7 where it's going to be safe. Can he stop me from doing this in any way? So queen g4 played. Now I want to go queen to h5. That's my idea. So I'll put it on the board, queen h5. Okay, he takes. I'll take back, rook takes h5. Now he doesn't have a pin anymore, so he can go ahead and take this d5 pawn. But after he takes on d5, my idea is just king b7, saving my bishop. Can I successfully get away with this? I don't see why not. Now the only challenge left is to get my pieces into the game, because I'm up a rook in this very position. I've traded the queen successfully, so that's a huge win for us. Trading the queens is something that we really wanted to accomplish here. It's necessary to the position to trade the queens. And now I can breathe a sigh of relief, because I'm no longer fighting to stay alive with my king. It's the end game, so we should be chilling here. And White will probably take on d5 with his pawn, but then I drop back king b7 so as to not give up the light square bishop on a6. And this might have been the detail missed by my opponent. I'm also threatening to just simply go knight takes f5 in some positions once I move the rook off of h5. Maybe my opponent has some threats involving the knight on d4, because that's actually a tough piece for me to protect. So let's say bishop to e3. Okay, he takes. Now I can come back here. I'll pre-move king takes a6. Okay, rook c1 played. Now he's threatening rook takes c7 mate. So I can just go rook to c8 and defend that threat. I'll still pre-move king takes a6. Yeah, he can win the c7 pawn if he wants. That's something I really can't do much about. But now I'm threatening rook to h1 in the position again. So let's say he doesn't take my bishop on a6. Now I'm threatening rook h1 again. And he can't do anything about that to stop me from trading off all the pieces. So he takes. I have to take back. Now knight b5 is a threat, threatening to get more pieces off the board. With my king on a6, I can actually play knight b5, as opposed to before when this knight was more or less trapped. So maybe he'll take on c7, just try to get something going there. But let's say he takes on c7. Now I take on f5, and I take on d5, and I take all his pawns. And at the same time, he has to parry the threat of rook h5. So now it's pretty safe to say that we're almost completely winning, if not just completely winning right here. The only reason I say almost is because white possibly might feel some inertia in this position just from having a strong attack before and make some threatening moves, but with queens off the board, we should more than likely be able to just easily defend. So I wouldn't be surprised if white just resigned soon. But I could never ask that of my opponent, of course. So king to f2 is played. And now I can play rook takes f5, no? And I'm just taking the pawn on d5 too. So rook f5 looks strong with the threat of g5 coming. I'll just take that. Now g5 pins the bishop to the king. The rook is already pinning the bishop to the king. g5 exploits that pin. So now if white takes on c7, this doesn't work anymore because the bishop's pinned, so I could just take back the rook. Okay, king to e3 is played. Alright, I can just take on d5 if I want. Let's say I just take on d5. This looks powerful to scoop up another pawn. And king to e4 really doesn't do anything for black's cause because I can just move my rook back and I'm threatening to take this e6 pawn too. So white is just completely lost here. King to e4 played. Now we have a couple options here. Knight to e2 just gives back an exchange, which we don't need to do. So let's just move the rook. Or we could play c6 too, actually. c6. c6 allows rook takes c6. So c6, rook takes c6. I take back, and then he takes my rook on d5. So maybe I should just go rook all the way back to d8. That looks like the most solid. Rook back to d8. And after rook d8, if bishop takes c7, it looks like my rook is getting trapped, but after bishop takes c7, I have knight takes e6. And if he takes my rook, I take the rook on c1. So it's just a rook for a rook trade. So yeah, this position is just getting more and more comfortable. We're just up a solid rook. White has no way to create threats against my king sitting here on a6. But man, oh man, this king has been through quite a journey, huh? It started off on e8, then came to d7, d6, c6, b7, a6. This poor Dutch defense king didn't get a chance to castle the whole game. Man, that is tough. So white's probably considering bishop takes c7 here. That's the most logical move because it semi-traps the rook in, but I think once he realizes knight takes e6 is in the position, he might just resign. Okay, rook takes c7. Now the idea is pretty similar, but I can just go knight takes e6 here also and force the rook trade. And white doesn't have any miracle rook takes a7 checkmate because there's nothing defending the rook. So he has to take my rook, I'll take back. And now it's just a simple conversion up a rook. Bishop to e5. He's trying to create something, I guess. I respect that. Let's just go g6. Now the idea is bishop to g7, trade off the bishops. All right, b4, but my king always has b7, so there's never going to be a mate. Let's just go bishop to g7. b5, okay. Now, king to a5 is active and creates threats. King b7 is just safe and solid. Let's just not risk anything. I know that with concrete calculation, it's easy to see that we are not getting mated, but king b7 just forces resignation. All right, good game, BDI, or BDL, I guess. Thank you for the game. He was like 20-30, played very well. Very, very interesting game. So let's take a look at that one. Let's analyze it. And let me just make sure you guys can see the analysis board properly. All right, I may have to make some adjustments. I'll just quickly stretch some things out. All right, let me make this bigger and make this bigger. All right, now you guys should be able to see everything. Yeah, all right, cool. This looks good. So let's take a look at how that game went. Knight f3 played, book move, good. So let's just quickly take a look at the report. So looks like my opponent played with 64% accuracy, and I played with 95% accuracy. So that's very solid. I'm very happy with 95% accuracy with 18 best moves. Very, very happy with that. All right, let's go to the game. I played f5 on move 1, the Dutch defense. And now e4. I was mentioning that I used to play this line with white, in which I played d3. And I actually get this position quite a bit, where white just plays e4, sacrificing a pawn. Takes, takes, takes. Bishop to d3. And after knight to f6, white commonly plays knight to g5, I believe. Yeah, knight g5. Oh yeah, knight g5. I typically play g6, takes. Now if you take back with a knight, you're getting mated in 1 after bishop takes g6. So you have to take back with the rook, and then takes rook to f7. I've had this position a lot online. It's just slightly better for white, but very holdable with black. Just a pretty easy position, honestly. You have 2 pieces for the rook, you'll be totally fine. But okay, my opponent plays e4 on move 1 here, or sorry, on move 2 before d3. Takes and knight to g5, so knight f6 played, and now d3. So sort of getting the same position, but slightly different, because now I can play knight to c6. Is that best? Let's see. So it looks like e takes d3 is the choice of the computer, or e5 actually, but okay, e5 is the choice of the computer. Idea is, let's say knight takes e4. What does it want us to do? I guess it wants us to go d5, knight takes f6, and queen takes f6 presumably, knight to c3, and bishop to c5 looks like. Very interesting. Okay, that's pretty cool. What if queen to e2 simply? Now we just castle. Knight takes d5. Wow, very interesting line here. Bishop takes f2, king goes to d1. And now the tables have sort of turned because white's the one on the defensive here. And the computer already evaluates this, as you guys can see, as like more than -1. So queen f7, queen goes to f3. And yeah, just a tough position for white. Queen to d7 with the discovery. Yeah, just a tough one. Knight f4 has to be found, not an easy move to find. And just bishop comes back here. Let's say bishop b6. Queen d5, queen f7. Okay, all right. Well, we get the idea. White's king is pretty unsafe. It's hard to play with white. So that's maybe what we should have done, gone for this e5 move. But yeah, all right. We played knight to c6, which is just about as good. D takes e4, and now h6 is the best move. And f4 was played, which instantly changes the evaluation. So f4 looks like a really aggressive move, and it looks like it's really achieving something. But it's actually a massive blunder because, like I said, my rook is now defending h5. So white can't really do anything on this diagonal to create mate, at least from h5. So the best move would have been knight to f3, after which we just play e5, and we sort of get this e4, e5 position in which we're up a couple tempi. So it looks like a normal e4, e5, but we're just up a move. So this is pretty easy to play. We have the whole f file, so we're going to try to castle queenside. let's say bishop c4, the computer wants bishop to c5, castles d6. And this is sort of what I was talking about, where we're going to try and just get our pieces out and go for castles queenside. Let's say a3. We can play a6. Okay, knight c3, let's say. And now our idea is, okay, the computer wants rook to f8, but I think just bishop to g4 is more than enough. And our idea is queen d7, castles queenside. So, all right, let's go back to the actual game. f4 was played. He didn't take, he played e5, which is the best move. Now, I played knight to e4, which gives up some of the advantage. Actually, the computer changed its mind. Knight e4 looks to be pretty good too, but we do give up some of our advantage. G takes f4 is supposedly huge for us, because after G takes f4, E takes f6. Now we have e5, and this is amazing. We have how many pawns are we up? We're going to be up like one pawn, but with pretty advanced pawns over here. So after taking on g7, we just take, and even though we're up one measly pawn, this position is like +4, which is amazing. Bishop d3 doesn't want queen h4. Okay, d5, very strong. Knight c3. And now it's got to be some sort of queen h4 in some position, like knight d4, okay. Let's say just bishop d2. Okay, queen h4 check. This is just completely crushing. Wow. So we're learning a lot of cool ideas here. That's awesome. Yeah, just very good position. We have f3. Wow, really putting the nail in the coffin, because if white takes, now our bishop can jump in, and this is completely lost. So okay, good thing to keep in mind, that always consider giving back the piece. You don't always have to try and hold on to it. You can just give it back with a much better position. But okay, queen d5, knight g3, supposedly a blunder. I was really trying to test my opponent a bit here, see if he saw queen d3, which he did. But it looks like queen d3 isn't even the best move, bishop d3. I thought if bishop d3, there would be e6, meeting bishop to g6 with king to e7. But what does white have here? f5. That is a tough move to find, I would think. Just giving up the queen. What a beautiful tactic. Oh my god. Beautiful, beautiful tactic. If I take the queen, bishop takes g5 is just game ending. And if I do something else, let's say I go d6, now just bishop takes g5 again, and I'm getting mated like this. So very beautiful tactic, f5. I didn't see that in the game, I must confess. But it's a tough one to see, very tough to see that far ahead and see that this f5 move, giving up the queen for free, just wins. So queen d3 played, and now d5 is the best move. Okay, king d7, and our king runs up to d6. And it's so hilarious to me that when our king jumps up to d6, we're -4.5. We're up 4.5 pawns worth, and the material is like completely equal here, pretty much. Or actually, he didn't take back the knight, so he's down a knight. But we have such a huge advantage despite the king being here on d6, which is amazing. Okay, so we played well here. f5 is a blunder because, okay, it lets us escape. Bishop to a6, c4, queen e8. And yeah, after bishop f4, I had a feeling I was escaping here. Looks like this is a blunder of sorts. Oh, right, because I guess white can take advantage of this knight on d4. But we're still winning after this move, so I guess it's sort of a blunder, but in that it gives us some of our advantage, but the queen trade does benefit us a lot. Okay, and then now we're just completely winning. I'll just point out what the computer wanted beforehand. It wanted queen takes h5, rook takes h5, castles queenside, and as I was mentioning, I actually don't have knight takes f5 because there's g4 in this position, forking the knight and the rook. So this is why the computer evaluated it as a blunder, but the queen trade is still beneficial for black. And here, this is just completely winning. Just sweep up all of his pieces, and it's just good game. And my opponent resigned. All right, so that was a pretty sweet game. If there is one picture-perfect moment from this game, it has to be this position where the king just lands on d6. Yeah, right about here. The king is on d6, but black is completely winning. Just goes to show that the Dutch defense is such a sharp opening, and if you're able to navigate the complications, then you will end up victorious. So thank you guys so much for watching, and keep an eye out for more videos coming soon. Lots of great stuff in the pipeline. I'll see you guys next